This is ContactTalkRadio.com, consciousness in action, and you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and a lot of you know why that is, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's because before my feet hit the ground every morning, I decide it's going to be a groovy day, and guess what? 99.9 times out of 10, it turns out that way. Something might happen, something might change, but I always think back. I started out groovy. What do I need to do? What do I need? Do I just need to stop? Do I just need to pause for a minute, take it in, and keep right on moving, right on a grooving for the rest of my day? It works out. You can do it too. It's simple and it works. Try it. You'll like it. Mikey liked Life Cereal. You can like this too. I bet you. As always, I have my co-host with me today, Jackie Bailey. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hello. Doing great. How about yourself?
It's Tuesday, and it's Life Mastery Radio Day.
Nothing more to be said, right?
Exactly, because I get to hang out with you, and you and I always have some really cool person with some really cool thoughts and ideas for our listeners to use on their very own life mastery journey. So here, when we have an awesome show for you today, we're going to be talking about kids and the family unit and the dynamics, and who knows, I don't know if many of you know, but there is no script for the show today. I'm sorry, it just flows. That's the way it works. Jackie and I have a blast, our guest has a blast, and we make some really good content just for you to maybe plant some seeds for you to use in the future. Or even, this is what I really like, is if you tell a friend about the show. Hey, I heard these really cool people on this really cool show called Life Mastery Radio. They have some great thoughts and ideas. You should listen to. It's that easy. I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. Both addresses take you to the same place. And anything that we talk about, we have a special gift, I'm understanding, so that link will be there. And anything else, the link to our guest website is already there. So if you go to today's show page, you can check her out. While you're there on that website, though, what we would really like is if you sign up for our newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter once a week. It highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and her infamous blog post about the show. And it highlights everything that she gleaned. You know, I read those over and I'm like, was I even on that show? How did she get all that out of that? But it's really cool to review.
All that up.
No, she doesn't make it up. I've checked. I've gone back and watched the show. Oh yeah, that's where she got that from. We also have books, and the links to our books are right there. Mine is, of course, 6 Keys to Life Mastery, and you can get it on Amazon. It's really cool. Jackie's book, Self-Centered Leadership, she's paving the way because she's in a couple of books, and she's got a third book, and I better get off my duff because I can't let her.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, another one comes out. So whew, yeah. I got to catch up. How are things at the Speak Feed Lead project? School year's starting. Are you in the groove with that as well? Or are you just kind of waiting to see what happens?
We are in the groove. We've got some classes that started the past couple weeks. My Australian students, they're on a very different schedule than we are.
I bet. Wow.
So even though a lot of our courses are directed toward the North American sort of school district ideal, They're always a little bit different. So we did have some of those classes with them in August before our schools actually started. And we started an adult workshop this past Sunday for 6 weeks going. So that's great. We've got some high school kids as well as a few adults. And it's nice to have that mixture because you get some added perspective from everything.
Yeah.
And,
Could you ever imagine that you would be international? I mean, this blows me away. I mean,
well, I imagined it, but I didn't imagine it would take a couple of months to get there. Once the pandemic started, it really was just a couple of months before then we were getting asked, from people around the world, can you do this? Can you do that? Because everybody.
well, and your kids are being invited on summits that are international. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, that was definitely beyond my imagination at this point, because I thought, won't it be really cool someday to get these kids on stages in front of audiences and really share their messages. And then when summits online started becoming even more popular because of the pandemic, that was the key. Now they have been on lots of stages, and I've actually got some students that have come with me to Los Angeles in March. We're speaking at the Best You Expo. Do you remember Bernardo Moya? He was a guest of ours.
Yeah.
I want to say last spring. And he did his love event this past weekend, which was really amazing. And that ended up being virtual because it was supposed to be in Miami. But Bernardo, he couldn't get out of the country. He lives in Spain. And he couldn't get out of Spain to get there. So everything went virtual for that. But it was a great event anyway, regardless of that. And so he's had a big event in LA, the Best You Expo. And I'm speaking, and I'm going to be taking some of my kids.
You're going there in person?
Going to LA, yes. We're going to have a booth.
Wow.
We're going to have some of my youth that will help me with my booth, and also do some speaking on stages as well.
Can I fit in your luggage?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to carry it on though.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've been. LA is the land of seminars. I mean, there are seminars and seminars and seminars. I've learned some really good stuff. I've been known to fly to LA for a day, tell you the truth. It's crazy. Well, that is very cool.
Center, so it'll be a really awesome event.
It's at the what? The business center?
LA Convention Center.
Oh yeah, I've been there a couple of times. Well, very cool. You can find out more. Follow the link or just Google Jackie Bailey. Oh my gosh, you will come up with so many things. A lot of it's Life Master. No, some of it's Life Master, but she's doing some amazing things in the world. So check it out. Okay, I think I'm done sweeping the house or cleaning the house. Yeah, whatever
you're doing.
Whatever I'm doing. I think that our guest today, Peggy, is your guest. So tag you're it. That means you have the introduction. Take it away, Jackie Bailey.
You know what? Part of serving the kids is I get to meet so many amazing people who are also serving kids. And so Peggy, our guest today, is one of those contacts or connections I made not too long ago. And sometimes you just get this feeling about people when you meet them. It's like, we've got something in common. Let's gel our ideas. So I'm excited to have her on the show today. Peggy Ouellette. She has a lot of letters behind her name. FPMH-NP. Maybe she can tell us what all those means. But she's a certified nurse practitioner, a grandmother of twins like me, and the founder of Functional Family Psychiatry. Peggy has been working in the field of adolescent psychiatry for over 25 years. She's passionate about presenting practical, sustainable solutions that empower families to be more connected and promote mental health and wellness for their children for a lifetime. Her mantra is, when you heal a family, you heal the world. That's so powerful. When she is not cooking or spending time with her family, Peggy enjoys travel, meditation, yoga, the outdoors, sunshine, and dance. So we are delighted to have on the show today, Peggy Ouellette. Welcome, Peggy. Woo-hoo.
Yay, thank you. So excited to be here.
Nice.
First of all, tell me about your twin granddaughters.
Woo.
They're a boy and a girl, and they're 3, and they are stinking sweet.
I bet 3 is a fun age.
Yes.
Especially when there's 2 of them. You know, and
You know,
I have, many of our listeners don't know, I have a twin brother. I have a twin brother, and
Oh,
now I have twin granddaughters. They are fraternal. They just turned 7, so they're starting first grade this year. And
nice.
twins are fun. Twins are delightful. I had fun as a twin. My brother and I were very different, but we had lots of fun, especially once we got into high school, similar groups of friends. Some people thought we were boyfriend and girlfriend because we were hanging out so much.
Oh.
Like, no, we're not the same people.
that's my brother.
It's fun. Twins are fun. And so that was just another connection Peggy and I have to each other. So cool.
You know, Peggy, maybe you can explain right out of the gate. Recently, it was probably 2 years ago, my doctor retired. And I had a choice to choose between a couple of doctors. And I chose a nurse practitioner, female. And, you know, over all the years of seeing a doctor once a year, I am really impressed with her ability to help me, help diagnose me, talk things through, figure things out. It just blew me away. So maybe you could explain for us, because this is a relatively new thing, no, for a nurse practitioner. They've been around for a while, because you're actually a certified doctor, right?
I'm a nurse practitioner, but yes, I'm independently licensed, essentially. Yes. So it's really an advanced practice nurse is one way of looking at it. So we, it started out as an RN and continued on and got masters. And, the training is not as extensive as a medical doctor. But most of the nurse practitioners that I know are very holistic, and
Right. That's the
you know,
biggest
we-
thing, right? They're down to earth, and they're more in tune
Yeah.
with this thing,
yes,
and not so much just the one thing.
not just the one thing in the black and white. And this is the way I learned it. I've always come from a place of curiosity, and it's one of my strongest values, and I'm always asking questions. Well, why? And getting more context in a situation. And I feel like in general, nurse practitioners do have that reputation.
And she
Yes.
listens to me, if I have some input, or I have some, especially with, I've got diagnosed with high blood pressure and different medications, and they affect me differently. And, I can go to her and say, look, this is doing this weird thing, and I really don't like it. And we can adjust and talk about it and try different things. And she's open, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
it's
feel
a
like
nice
I've had
mix
that
between
experience.
Western and Eastern medicine, right? I mean, if it in a typical medical sense, right? But I
Yeah.
know that's probably not what you're working with, but my nurse practitioner is the same way. She looks at things as a whole being, and
Yes.
whatever works, whether it's Eastern or Western medicine, that's what we try. So
Bingo. And really meeting people where they're at.
Mhm.
Because you're going to have your people that are, I know you guys like to use the term woo woo. They're like, I don't want pills. I don't want medications. And what else can I do? And, and there are people like, just give me a pill. I've had kids tell me they wanted a pill that was, had a commercial.
Oh
I
no.
was like, my brother's on a medication that has a commercial. Can I
Oh,
get one
no.
too? Like, of course we can do that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, those commercials are amazing. I mean, they promise, here's the happy pill, but watch out for this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. But yet the sale is here's your happy pill.
Yes, that's right.
I
Yeah.
knew those commercials had gone too far when there was one that had an animated bladder that was walking around.
My goodness, I missed that one.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's extreme.
So let's talk a little bit about that whole, maybe you could, well, let's go back into how you got here, right? What was it that
Totally.
led you? I understand that a lot of it is about curiosity. I'm
Yeah.
as curious as a cat, and I think that has led me down some very, very cool paths. So tell us a little bit about Peggy.
Sure. So, Jackie, we talked about, connecting on the idea that we love working with kids. And it's one thing that I've known about myself since I was a kid, that I had this natural ability and this, I was drawn to helping kids and working with kids. And I was, I was like literally the most sought after babysitter in the town, truly, like, I'm not even kidding you. People would reserve me months in advance to make sure they could get me, And so I grew up in a family of 6 kids, an oldest daughter. So I was automatically a caretaker, and, it just came naturally to me. And it wasn't until I started teaching nursing students that I realized that not everyone loves kids. Like, who knew that was a thing?
How is that even
So
possible?
it was like an aha moment. Oh, really? But so I started adjusting in a way to my teaching and saying, no matter who's in the room. So if you're a nurse and you're taking care of adults or post-surgical or cancer, whatever, when there's a kid in the room, there's an opportunity for you to interact with that kid and to answer their questions, acknowledge them. And so I really started to frame it. And in a way, I think about it today, and it has helped me shift. So what I was doing before, I moved into my own practice, independent practice, as a, essentially functioning like a psychiatrist. So providing medications for kids and adults as well. But my specialty has always been working with children and teenagers. And then I realized, and I do have, a couple of my own personal stories that I can share in there as well. But I realized that as parents, we can bring our kids in to, fix my kid doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And, and as doctors, as you guys, I'm sure, have experienced, we're really good at, oh, you have this thing, take this pill, you have this other thing, try this. Right. And it's like easy in a way. And then you leave the office and you do your thing. But by the Fix the Kid program wasn't working for the whole family. And so there were a few aha moments in my office with some different families that I realized somebody was missing the big picture. So somebody needed to be the person to look at the family with a different lens. Instead of dad's going to the high blood pressure doctor and mom's going to the, I'm having depression doctor, whatever. But people were missing the big picture. And as a result, families are staying sicker and not getting better. And nobody's understanding why.
Because the family is a dynamic, right? And if you don't look, and I think that's your specialty, is what's going on in the whole, not just the part, because whatever is going on in the whole could be affecting that little part. And that's just basic common knowledge that we have with, a lot of things, and yet it's so distant when we look at the family unit.
Not when it's personal. We see it with a different lens, and we're like, but Peggy, you don't understand. I do everything for my kids. But Peggy, you don't understand. I've sacrificed my whole life for my kids.
But they can eat anything they want at any time. Right. Right.
So we tend to miss what is right in front of us. So in my own story, here I was, the child expert. I started out as a nurse. I worked on a pediatric floor, working with, all kinds of acute illnesses with kids. And I worked on a psychiatric unit with teenagers. I'm like the child expert here, And so here I am, I'm a mom, a young mom. And I thought I knew what I was doing. I'm like, when I learned I was going to have a baby, I'm like, I know what to do. I can change diapers, I can cook meals, it's all good. And so here I was, the expert, and, fast forward. And so there were some, my child, super sweet, super bright kid, had some troubles in school, but pushed his way through. He was pretty stubborn at times, like, Mom, I got this, don't talk to my teachers, like that. And
that's part of being a kid, right?
It's part of it. That's right. They're different. Kids have different personalities, and that was who he was. And there was a lot of arguing, when he was a teenager, there was a lot of headbutting, and I can just hear him saying, "Mom, you're not listening to me." And I would be like, "Of course I'm listening. That's what I do for a living. I hear your words." But he wasn't feeling heard.
Are you sure you're not my mom?
Well, we're all so guilty of this. So the
Yeah.
reason I share this, is because I was the expert. I was right, and so I was fully participating in the arguing and wasn't opening my ears and opening my heart, so to speak, for him. And so fast forward a few years later, he and his beautiful wife were over, and unbeknownst to him, I had a story about his birth story that I had never shared with him. And I shared it with him that day. And he essentially that morning, walked out of my life and was like, I'll say broke up with me. He's like, I don't want to talk to you. That's, he was very upset with me, and that I had not shared this with him previously. And so I knew they were getting ready to have babies, and I thought it was the right time to share some things, and so that led to a pretty significant period of estrangement and strain in our relationship that in a way could have been avoided had I known differently, had I known. And of course, we could say, oh, I wish I would have known. I wish someone had told me. And in a way, this is where my story comes from, because we have to share our stories. We have to deal with our own traumas. And if we're not, it does create distance in space with our own kids, and it does affect our parenting and their development. And it's taken quite a few years, and there's been a lot of healing that's happened since then. So,
well, that experience, as tragic as it was, but it allows you to share that now, and
yes.
have people have a different result. So that's the cool part about that.
Yes.
It seems an interesting story, though, for him to be upset about. Is there, now that you work with adolescents in a psychiatric type way, is it possible that not having that story known before, I don't know, created this disconnect somehow to you? Or did he just feel slighted because he'd never heard about it until you shared it with someone else? Why do you think the upset happened? And is that something that we should be careful with our own kids or ones we
right? Great question. And I think the answer, so I think both things happen. So because when we hold on to our own trauma, for example, and I've learned a lot since then about generational trauma and family patterns, and a lot of this stuff had actually already existed in my family. And I'm like going behind me because this had been going on for generations. And, my mom ended up passing very young. She was 70. And I learned a lot about her own traumas and the family stories there. And I realized this keeps getting passed along.
Mm-hmm.
And until someone, and I can picture my mom used to be closed up, and she didn't really have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized this stuff gets passed along from generation to generation. And we have to take the responsibility as parents to truly release our own trauma, release the generational trauma, so that it is not carrying on for generations to come.
It's interesting that you say that, because I experienced that big time. I have 3 daughters. And when they were very young, I figured it out that I was an alcoholic, right? And I began to get sober and start working on the insides of me via the 12 steps, of course. And I always shared my stories with my kids, as little as they were. They always knew the stories of, what I did, how I did it, why I did, all of that stuff, the horrific, not so much detail, but, how I acted and how I showed up in the world. And it was not pretty. And I always shared that with them. And, today, here we are 20 years later, and I don't see any drug or alcohol abuse in any three of those kids, right? They might divulge in it a little bit, but there is no across the board. And here it has been in my family, identified in my family for generations and generations. And so I think that I ended it by being honest and upfront. And this is what happened to me when I did these things.
Yeah. And maybe on some level you truly released it.
Right.
And
well, is it true, Peggy, that you and I are both parents and grandparents, and Todd is as well, that we try to maintain this strong front? Like, I never made any mistakes. I was a good kid. My parents were proud of me, blah, blah. And we try to put that out to our kids in thinking that will keep them straight-laced, right? That will make them want to be better because that's the way we are and we're their example. But in reality, if we don't share our mistakes, if we don't share our vulnerabilities and the times when we've had to change who we are or change something that we were doing, we don't actually make that connection. It's like, as a professional speaker, I have to be vulnerable when I'm up on stage to an audience. And if I'm just up there boasting about all the awesome things I've done, they're not going to connect with me until I get down and dirty with the mistakes I've made and what it cost me.
Right.
And what I had to do to get back to a state of grace again. And so when our kids, I think, when they see that in us and that we're real people, and why we're motivated to have the rules in our home, or why we are motivated to ask them to do certain things, or why we won't let them to go do certain things they want to, I think that's easier for them to understand than just, it's because I said so, right?
Yeah, right. That style of parenting does not work.
Typically.
Yeah.
So what do you see on the other side of that then with kids that are coming to see you as clients or patients?
So one of the things that I had been good at this for a long time because it wasn't personal to me, but when kids, one of the first lessons I learned in one of my first jobs as a nurse was behaviors have meaning. And so following the behavior and really trying to understand where the behavior is coming from. So lots of times kids don't have the language, they don't have the insights or the experience to really articulate and express what their needs are. So as parents, we have to be more detectives and, I say track, with a little bit of an eye roll, because most people don't want to track the behaviors. There have been some parents that have come in and highly motivated that truly track everything that was going on. But that's when we start to see patterns. And so when you start understanding, and, I'll give you an example. There was a little boy that was having trouble in a classroom, and he was having a meltdown during circle time in the classroom. And, the mom asked some questions, and turns out the boy couldn't see the teacher from where his seat was in circle time. And so he was like a visual learner, and he wasn't really good auditorially. So he really had a hard time keeping his body still. But when they moved him to a different spot in the circle, his behavior stopped. Wow. Very simple, but it's to me, I just learned so much from that story because it makes so much sense. And so if your kids are having meltdowns, paying attention to what just happened before that. So it's so many patterns emerge.
Yeah, it's really important because meltdowns happen. It seems like grocery stores are where a lot of meltdowns happen.
Right.
Right. And so if you can, what you're saying, I think, is if you can determine a pattern of when those meltdowns are happening, you might be able to see what your child is actually trying to tell you.
Yes.
So how far back then do you look prior to a meltdown? Is there a typical timeline? Is it an hour before, or is it 5 minutes?
Great question.
So,
it depends though. One family was like, the little boy had just been at the neighbors and had like a blue Gatorade type of drink. and came home and had this huge meltdown, and they went over to the neighbors, and it turned out he was having a reaction to the dyes in the Gatorade, and then some other kids were there having explosions like once or twice a week, but the other days they seem fine. And it turns out it's when they're constipated, just giving you some different. So, food sensitivities, reactions can happen very quickly. And sometimes it can take up to 3 days, just to add a little bit more into the confusion. So the more you're sort of paying attention and tracking, it can become more evident, but sometimes it's not immediate.
Well, I heard you talking on another podcast today, you even brought in the environment, right? I think you gave an example of a family that lived in an old moldy house, and the minute they abandoned the house, things got better.
It was such a big game changer for me, that family, because talk about having the whole family system, and dad was on medications, mom was on medications, and nobody was like really treating the family as a whole. When the little boy was outside, he was great. But when he was in the home, and his evenings in particular, he was having huge meltdowns. And it was something like his behaviors had changed to a point, and it triggered something. I was already starting to learn about functional medicine and looking at the root cause of things. And some of the symptoms that they described reminded me of neuropsychiatric changes that happen in the brain as a result of, I call it a high toxic load. And in this kiddo's, situation, he was breathing it all day long in this old home. And the parents were sleeping with their bedroom windows open year round, and they were like, it helped them sleep better, but they hadn't really made the correlate. They knew there had been water damage, and but they didn't think of it as a big deal. This happens a lot where one family member is exhibiting more symptoms than others. Could be one person could be having all this pain or no energy, and another one could be confused and dizzy. Somebody else could have rashes on their body, and it's all from an environmental, overload. But yes, we have to look at the whole home.
Well,
one house takes on a whole new meaning. It's not always ghost.
Yes, sweep your house.
That just adds to the dynamic too, because I was thinking about it while you were explaining that on another show, and I was thinking, gosh, things are so dynamic and changing, and our homes are getting older, right? A lot of these houses were built in the 40s and 50s, and things are, and so as we progress, things are just radically changing, and we don't have the instruction book.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
So when you, as a functional family psychiatrist, I think that's the name of your business, right? Functional Family Psychiatry.
Functional Family Psychiatry. Yep.
And this is where? Where is your business?
Out of Maine.
In
Maine.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you see clients online?
Doing only online. So one of the parts of my own healing and health journey was I ended up selling my home, and I left my office, which was also had quite a lot of water damage in there. And I know that it was adding to my own toxic bucket. And so I closed my brick and mortar practice, and I'm doing all online now.
Okay, interesting. And my question was about the word functional, because it's a little bit new to me, and it might be new to people listening, that there's this new genre of medicine, which is functional medicine. Can you go a little bit deeper into what that means?
When I think of functional medicine, I think of root cause medicine is really my simplest way of thinking about it. So instead of, you came to me for anxiety issues, I wouldn't just be anymore. I wouldn't anymore just be like, okay, let's talk about Prozac. And I was already there as a practitioner, because I've been the one, I have a reputation for ordering all kinds of labs, looking for hidden food allergies or environmental allergies, doing genetic testing on people. So I was already doing a lot of that stuff, which is what most functional medicine people are historically known for, is going into those deep dive tests that your traditional doctor doesn't order. to look for what else is going on. So, but now instead of, I would be like, oh, let's talk about some Prozac, once all the evaluation part was done. What I'm doing now is looking at diet, lifestyle, environment, and saying, let's get you to baseline. Let's get you back to baseline. And I have a very structured program where we release things that are stored, because we store everything since childbirth. We've been storing heavy metals and certain toxins in our fat cells. Not saying anybody's fat, but it's all in there. So we work on releasing that so that your toxic bucket goes down. And we work on the mind. And so while we're doing the body part, we work on the mind as well. And of course, spirit comes in there as well. But so it's really from, I do a really deep dive root cause assessment form when my people enter into the program. So a lot of the moms, it's been mostly moms that have joined the program. They're like, I'm fine, Peggy, it's my kids, or I'm fine, it's my husband's health that I'm worried about. And then when we do a root cause assessment on mama, it's like, oh, they're having digestive issues, they're having daily headache, they're having, like, you name it. It's like the list goes on and on, even though they're like, I'm pretty healthy.
Well,
I thought it was healthy too.
Attitudes, emotions, and behaviors are reflective, right? I mean, if mom's not feeling good, then that's just going to follow the chain down.
Yeah.
So Peggy, are you finding then that a lot of behavioral issues with kids and adolescents today are traceable to dietary issues?
Yes.
I think you got a reaction, Jackie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it like every patient, or is it
Say every patient.
Really?
But
Okay.
here's the thing is, I think, does changing your diet change everything? Not necessarily, but most of us think we're eating healthier than we actually are. And the diet, they call it the SAD diet, the standard American diet, which is a lot of processed foods and unhealthy fats. That diet contributes to our toxic bucket. And so there's very little room, because, you guys talked about the forest fires out west, when we were before this call started, so we're breathing in all of that smoke. And so our body, our liver, our organs, everything has to filter it. And so if we can clean up our diet, that goes a long way to reducing behaviors.
Yeah.
Reducing sugar. As a grandmother, one of my, things for any listeners out there, if you're the grandmother, and you're like, oh, but my kids are grown, it's too late, I can't do anything for my kids anymore. Well, you're still the matriarch of the family, so to speak. You can, instead of, bringing the donuts to the next event, literally, and I have friends that do this. They're like, okay, I'm going to see my grandchildren, I got to go pick up some treats.
Sugar
the
hit.
Kids are getting enough treats. We have an opportunity to create a different culture within our entire family. And so we don't have to bring the donuts. We can, give, instead of a gift of sugar, you can give a gift of an experience instead, a gift of time, a gift of something else. It doesn't have to, sit down and read a book with them. They don't need any more sugar.
Yeah, one of my granddaughters just loves puzzles. She loves to do puzzles. So that's our treat. We usually bring her a puzzle, and she's
nice.
Yes, exactly.
Stimulating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Peggy, you said something about genetics. I'm a technology freak, and I like to follow the technology. And I know that we've come a long way in that. But is it that revealing, or is it just help with clues? Because you might, maybe I understand it differently, but what I understand is you might be predisposed to something, but it might not be affecting you.
Correct. I think the genetics, the rule of thumb that I use is about 30% contributing to whatever you're going to have. And so we can alter the genetic interpretation of those predispositions by changing our diet and lifestyle and doing those other things. And so if you have a predisposition to, you know, cancer, we'll say, and you eat and you ingest things that are anti-cancer, and you have a lifestyle and you're in the sunshine and you have joyful movement in your life, and, you know, you're connected to spirit or whatever your inclination is, your chances of actually having cancer manifest itself in your body are significantly reduced.
Nice.
So the genetics for me really taught me a lot more than anything. I got to understand, because I started doing it in terms of how a person responds to medication.
Mm.
And so, oh, look, this medication, all these medications that you tried are like, they're saying you probably wouldn't do well on those medications. Now I understand, because of your methylation pathways and because you have this gene, I get it now. But the thing is that I always was intrigued by is, how do we clean up the methylation pathways? You know, if you have these genes, now what? And so that's the part that I'm more interested in now.
Oh.
The things that I'm doing in my program, really, for most people, regardless of what your genetic predisposition is, we can modify your lifestyle to optimize the healing power that we already have within.
You know, you said something too here just a couple minutes ago, and I'm really curious about, and that is a belief system, right? How much does that come into play? You know, and I don't want to get too far off in the weeds, but just I guess if you boiled it down, a connection with nature, right? And the ability to just connect with the all.
Yeah. You're asking how much does that play into things?
Yeah. How important is that? I mean,
well, it's huge,
society
because if you're
today
not,
has run away, right? They've run away from all of that.
We're in this go brain, this go world, and, you know, fear of missing out, you know, like that mindset is so prevalent, and the technology, and we have to stop and we have to breathe. That's one of the top tips that I have for health, is teaching people how to breathe. We're not breathing properly, you know, so we're not supposed to be mouth breathers. We're supposed to be breathing through our nose. Our mouth is for eating, the nose is for breathing. And so, like, you know, one of the things I do is work with people on how to nose breathe. And so, yes, connecting with nature, meditation, wherever people are at, tapping them back into that thing that works for them,
right,
so that they have that spiritual side being fed, makes all the difference. Because if you're not feeding it as a parent, as a grandparent, as a mate, if you're not feeding your spiritual side, you're not creating space for the people around you. You're not creating space for your own self. And
even ease and grace, right? Ease and grace come into it's just, we get so wound up and we're reacting to everything in our world that we don't have, you know, the brakes, put on the brakes and just relax and enjoy it.
Yes.
Peggy, is there an example you can share with us of maybe a patient that came to you with some whatever behavioral difficulties or something like that, that after all this detective work you discovered a root problem?
Totally. Well, I love that, the story that you were referring to that I talked about on another podcast, because I'll talk a little bit more about that. And it really was the little boy that originally came to me, and his behaviors were he couldn't tolerate being in school. He was having school refusals, wasn't going.
How old was he?
10, 11, I think, around the time I started to see him. And, you know, we did the blood work. We did all the things we normally do. We had already tried the therapy. The parents were already like trying behavioral interventions. They're like, what the heck is going on? Like, truly, you know, they were well-rounded parents, and they couldn't figure out what the heck. And so they did some homeschooling. They did alternative school. They're trying to figure out, and this is a super, super bright kid. Well, what happens is, and this was a kid that, you know, the end of the story was there was mold in the home, and it was creating his, you know, neuropsychiatric changes. And so he was having separation anxiety is one of the key things that happen. So you have, or like extreme paranoia. is another one. But these just sort of out of character meltdowns that were happening, those were big. And I feel like it's a cool story in the sense that it was a cool, really cool ending.
Right.
Where everything just went away and everybody's coming off their medications left and right.
Did
Pretty
they
much
move into a different house?
they moved into a different home. Yes. And it made all the difference. But it turns out when, and the little girl, his little sister was starting to have behaviors, and like, we got to get her some treatment now, because it was impacting. But here's the thing is, your child's behavior is a symptom of what's going on in the entire family.
Mm.
It's just like you, Todd, you're like, I've got high blood pressure. That's just one symptom in your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's your body is talking to you. And when you have a child who's having a behavior, that child is talking to you. And so they're showing you something that you need to see. And so I think about different families that I've come in and they're like, oh, my daughter isn't doing this, or my kid isn't listening, but it's like, what is it that they're trying to show you? And that's really where the work comes into play, is so not only following and tracking the behavior. So it took a lot of detective work, and it really was those key symptoms, like I said, that taught me that it could be mold. And dad and the boy literally did a symptom. I had a questionnaire for them, and it was like pointed heavily towards mold as a possibility. Wow. But there are things like parasites, and I go back for years and years and years. One mother, when I first started out as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, she was like, my kid is having problems every full moon.
Yeah.
And
I heard
and I researched it, and there was like, oh, no evidence support. Well, I learned now, like, there's parasites. Like, if you have parasites in your body and you're having major sleep disturbances or behavior changes during the full moon, those parasites, like, they get very active during that time. And so, like, I didn't know, like, nobody told me about that, but we just have to listen. So there's so many examples of possible things,
Well,
and the answers are all there.
There are people like you who will look at all those things, because you go to a typical MD and they're not going to consider any of that.
No.
They won't even see a patient for behavioral issues. They'll look at maybe some blood work, and then they'll go, oh, he's a little depressed, so let's give him this.
Yeah,
and,
I could tell a huge difference.
Do that, Peggy, because somebody needs to be more of an advocate for our kids.
Yeah,
yes.
there was a big difference just for me between a regular MD and a nurse practitioner. It was huge, and I was just like, really? This is like different.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But imagine those kids who aren't getting that help, and they're growing up believing that they're awful, that they just can't sit still, that they don't like their family. This is
something's wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong with me. And I can't change, so I'm an awful person, and I'm just going to drop out of school and do my own thing. Just imagine how many kids right now are sitting in prison because they didn't have the resources that Peggy offers for someone to take a long, hard look at what's going on. And, a lot of that plays into busy parents too, who are just trying to survive and give their kids as much as they can, but they don't recognize that they've got health issues related to whatever's happening, or something like that. And like you say, it's no man is an island, right? When we look at a family, I think the first thing we need to realize is that it is a family unit, but it's not just individuals, but there are different ways that individuals are affected by things going on in the family unit. And so much to look at. It's almost daunting to think about, okay, where should we start? So that's my next question to you is, if families are experiencing something like this, where there's just not that harmony that they want, where should they start looking first?
It's a great question. And I just want to jump before I answer that. It's not your fault, parents. Like, if you're a parent and you're listening to this, I want you to know you're doing your best, and we're all doing our best. And it's no longer an excuse, because once you know it, you can't unknow it. Okay. So this is your challenge if you're listening to this right now. So, but speak out. How many families are suffering and are the shame and the embarrassment. My own story, I was in a victim mode, and it was, oh, this is happening to me. And instead thinking about, like, this is happening for me. Okay, what is it that I need to see? And so it's frustrating when we go to our doctor and they're not hearing us. Well, I put it back on you. And if you're not feeling heard by your doctor, and I know it doesn't resonate with you and what they're recommending, keep going. There are people out there.
Nice.
There are so many really cool groups, social groups and community groups, and reach out to your people. But reach out to somebody, get on a call with me, like run your story by me. Like, not everybody that I speak to like jumps on my program, but I always give them some places to start, in terms of like, but don't keep it inside anymore. Share your story. So a lot of people think, and they're like, I'm doing the best I can, and my kids, I'm giving them the meds and I'm doing the things. And yes, you are. And there's more. And I guarantee that if, I was missing it, you're missing it, and we can't know it until we have a mentor, we have a guide, somebody that helps us to see our blind spots. Yeah. So, start wherever you're at. You can't do anything about what happened in the past, but you can do something about it now. And so where do you start?
Oh my goodness, ladies, we only have about 5 minutes left, and I know and I understand Peggy might have a free gift. Is that true? Do you have something?
I do. So when Jackie asked, where do you start? So I have a giveaway for your listeners called it's my morning routine, basically. And it's a long link. I can give you the link, but it's go.functionalfamilypsychiatry /
We'll put it in the blog and the newsletter.
It will be in the blog, and it will be on the website. So go
totally. Yes. So, but yeah, so starting with you, starting with, breathing, you're already doing some things right. For some people, it may be learning about the clean 15, doing more organic fruits and vegetables in your home, changing something up in the diet, getting rid of some of the crap in the closet, in the pantry closet. But I feel like our good night's sleep and our ability to be present for our kids really starts with how we start every morning. And I love, Todd, how you're like, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, it's going to be a groovy day. And people may laugh or whatever, but you're spot on. So how you start your day, how it happens when your feet hit the floor, it really sets the tone for the entire day, and you're setting the tone for your entire family. Yeah. And so our kids are watching us, they're listening to us, and it's our responsibility to be the leaders in that family, because everything rolls downhill. So great. You got to start with us. So that's why I put out the morning routine.
Cool. That link will be in our newsletter and on the website. Go to www.lifemasterradio.net or .com. Sign up for those. Check it out. Check out Peggy. Peggy, thank you so much for showing up as you today. This was a great show. I hope you'll come back.
I love it. Yes, I love it. I love.
Did you have a blast?
I totally had a blast. Okay, you guys are awesome.
Oh, I got one last question. And it's been popping up all throughout the show. Where's your book?
Oh, my book.
You have a book.
I do. Here's my book. It's called Wellness Wisdom. It's my first book. It is a compilation book with other healthcare providers from all around the world. Nice. And I'm a chapter. But I got my first book published, and I'm with you, Todd. I gotta be thinking about book number 2.
Yeah, you've got some amazing information here. Just remember this, Coach Debbie, she helps people get the book that's in them out of them. So Coach Debbie. She's
is she on one of your podcasts?
Huh? She's my girlfriend.
She's your girlfriend.
She has her own radio show, but she has a radio show.
And she has her own radio show too.
She should start calling herself the book birther.
That's a good point. Book birther. Oh my goodness. Jackie, any quick last minute? This was fun. This was a cool show.
You know what, Peggy, I wish you were around when I was a young parent. And I know that I still have influence over children because I have students and grandkids and so forth.
Yes.
I really appreciate them today because really opened my eyes to a lot of opportunities that I can help them feel better about who they are. So thank you.
Yes.
Cool. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Tell a friend about the show. Lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.